Oh, all right. Welcome to the seventh Men's Literacy Imbizo webinar. A warm welcome to our guest, our lovely panelist, participants joining us in their beautiful homes across South Africa and beyond. Of course, my name is Madoda. The surname is Ndlakuse, and it is my great pleasure to serve you as the host and the moderator for today's Men's Literacy Imbizo webinar. And a shout out to my producer behind the scenes, Prudence. Guys, thank you so much for taking your time, to be part of this great conversation. Of course, your presence, shows commitment to the work that we're doing with children, to the work that we're doing with families, as well as our communities. Today's theme is men as everyday role models in children's lives. Amadoda ayimizekelo namhlanje kubomi babantwana babo. This is reminding us that children are always watching us, every step of our way, the way that we are living our life. Children are always there watching us. They learn not only from what we are saying, but what we actually do every single day. That's what they love the most. They mimic, they imitate our examples. So every father, every grandfather, every uncle, every brother, every coach, mentor, teacher, and male caregiver has the power to shape a child's future through everyday's actions. Before I can actually move along with our program, most people are asking themselves, who is Nali Bali? And of course, what is men's literacy in Bizo? Our producer is going to play us a slide, and then we will just read from the slide.
Very good evening, late afternoon to everybody that has joined us. My name is Prudence Aarons, and I want to sincerely apologize for the technical glitches that we've experienced. Our lead in our webinar, Madoda, unfortunately is also experiencing technical challenges on his end with network. And so I'll just in the interim take over this discussion so that we're able to, have an engaged full conversation in the meantime. And I think just to start us off with, I want us to quickly, for those that are new here, for those just joining us, for those that don't know who we are as an organization, to just give a quick overview of what we do as Nalibali. And so, as an organization, our main aim is as a National Reading for Enjoyment campaign. We're committed to nurturing a culture of reading in homes, schools, and communities. And we do this through our reading clubs, our literacy events that we host across the country, as well as in the format of our multilingual story resources that are available in our supplement that we distribute to about 100,000 children across the country monthly, as well as our digital platform, our website, as well as our WhatsApp line that's also accessible to everybody across the country. And so one of our flagship programs that we are starting to build and really trying to get a lot more males engaged within the space of literacy is our Men's in Bizo program. And this initiative is really designed to strengthen the role of men in our communities to promote literacy, learning, and also storytelling within their families and their communities. And the program, we aim to create safe spaces, reflective spaces for fathers, mentors, and male caregivers to explore their influence on children's learning, as well as the well-being of their children, the importance of positive male role modeling as a whole, and ways that men can actively support the reading and learning habits of their children at home, and also just their role as community leaders and mentors. And so that is just a little bit about what we do throughout this program and what we seek to achieve as we drive its implementation. And what I'd like for us to just quickly do next is to just go into the detail of why we are having this webinar. And ours really is to encourage men to recognize that children's learning, they learn by observing their actions, they learn by observing the behaviors of those around them, and they also learn languages and attitudes based on these engagements. And we also want to use this as a space for us to engage with our panelists as resources, right? That will be able to help us reflect on how, you can role model respect, responsibility, and positive values within your space at home and the community at large. And with that said, I'd like to just give an opportunity to our panelists to each do a quick introduction. And just as our panelists introduce themselves, I just want to pose this quick question to our audience for you to tell us, when you think back to your childhood, who was the man who influenced you the most? And what is that one lesson from him that you still carry with you today? For me, it was one of my teachers that really taught me, Mr. Makir, the importance of learning, and this was of reading, and this was in primary school, where he told me that learning is a resource, right? And reading becomes even a greater resource because it gives you an entryway into a world that you have not seen, but that you can imagine, and that alone strengthens your imagination. So tell us from you, your part growing up, when you're thinking back on your own childhood, who was that man who influenced you the most? And what is that one lesson from him that you still carry with you today? And we'll look out for those comments in our comment box. And so here, I'd love for us to please, if you're able to just give us a signal from our panelists. If you can please switch on your camera so that our audience are able to see you. And if I may start with the first panelist at hand to just quickly, if I can give you an opportunity, please, Mr. Nkosi Kosana, to tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do. And after Ubut Nkosi, I'll hand over to Ubut Akona to tell us a little bit about himself and the work that you do.
Good evening to you all, to our viewers and listeners, and everyone out there. And also, thank you so much for hosting us on the show. My name is Nkosinatis Kosana, Nkosis Kosana in short, and I am proudly an active participant in this industry of literacy and literature, working for the Nelson Mandela Municipal Public Library Service. I have been here since 2010, and I started off working as a children's librarian. And actually, I spent the better years of my career doing that, pushing literacy, improving literature, and trying to grow the literary world for our young children within the city. That is in terms of using our libraries as resources and vehicles to sort of channel development and literacy. Currently, I am working as a manager for branch services. Of course, ensuring that we growing this brand of libraries. In our modern society, they're not as popular anymore, but we are working to strengthen our ties with the economy. We're pushing for social cohesion, or pushing for relevance, and trying to ensure that we retain the essence of sharing information, disseminating information, and accessing retrieval of information.
That is so exciting. Thank you so, so much. I think that will just give us an entryway into our next panelist to please just tell us a little bit about yourself briefly and the work that you do. Excited to learn so much more. And I think that there's so much that we can take from you as our panelists. So before we go into the detailed discussions, please put Akona if you can do the same for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prudence. Good evening, colleagues, and to everyone who has joined us. My name is Akona Mafani. I am from Makanda. I am a praise poet, I'm a literacy activist, and I'm doing a lot of community work. I get to work with schools through Ingaka Poetry Academy, an academy that is meant to equip poetry skills and keeping the language, preserving the language isiXhosa and in the indigenous languages, and promoting the children's literacy. Lastly, I am a former provincial administrator of Nali Bali in the SAFE project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much again, Put Akona, as well as to Put Nkosi. I think this is really a great way for us to just segue into the questions that we have. And I believe that we'll get so much out of the responses that we receive. And I think just starting with Ubut Akona, if while I have you on the spotlight, can you tell us why it is so important for fathers and male caregivers to be actively involved in their children's lives?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Prudence. This goes with no doubt, and this goes with no reluctancy. For so long, we were living in a society where fathers have neglected our homes, their homes, where children, we see a lot of vulnerable children, children that have no role models. So it is very important, for the fathers to take part into the literacy of the children, for the betterment of our society, for the betterment of literacy, and also to bring about a very positive role modeling. But for so long, what the children are exposed to is contradictory, to what really is supposed to change and transform the lives of these children. So I think, personally, we men need to be at the forefront in making sure that Uguti literacy becomes, something that is normal, and it becomes a norm into our homes and our societies, so that we can have better families for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Putakona, for that response. I fully concur with you because of the role that we play and how, it can help our children just by setting that tone and being the role model for them. It will encourage them to, be more engaging. And I think I'll just also go to the same question for you as well. But Nkosi, if you can tell us from your perspective and from your experience, why is it so important for fathers and male caregivers to be involved and actively involved in their children's lives?
Thank you again. You see, being fathers in a child's life is one of the main determinants of how your child grows up and how your child is built and modeled. Now, you will find that men, biblically have been given the role of being leaders. And so that sort of role transcends through many other aspects of their lives. You see, being a father or a parent to a child, you will find that the things we do, the things we say, the manner in which we carry ourselves has got a massive amount of influence on a child. Now, there is a variation between when you define, for instance, I'll just call power. The definition of power is the ability to influence without authority. And then you have the authority being the ability to influence via a formal type of authority other than without the power. So a father, therefore, sort of coins those abilities and those unique qualities in terms of now influencing how a child thinks, the manner, the way in which we speak to our children, the manner in which we dialogue with our children, the manner in which we engage, it plays a very powerful and crucial role as to how we shape a child's way of thinking, a child's way of responding to situations. Many a times we as fathers don't participate in small things like homeworks, small things like assisting a child with quiz, or preparing for an oral, or those type of things. Predominantly mothers tend to be actively involved in those things, and so our children are influenced by a feminine type of alienation or thought process. Now, when we come into the picture as men, it sort of helps to cement now that concrete foundation of a child's way of thinking and doing things. We sort of children generally look up to their fathers as a mentor, as a role model. And so when you say things, they tend to stick. The manner in which you treat the family, children are able to realize that a father is sort of a leader, type of, for lack of a better word, but they do pick it up. And so when you do things in the house, when you shout in the house, when your wife or a mother or your granny, you're always speaking harshly to your parents, children pick those things up. And so that role modeling tends to play a different role now if a father is misdoing things or doing things in a bad way, and like they sort of carry that. And now, coming to literacy, if you're doing things right, if you're doing children homework with your children, if you're doing your orals with your child, if you're doing storytelling with your child, if you're passing themes, if you are teaching them poetry. I grew up with my grandfather. He always liked to use trickery. He would give sentences or phrases like, if there were 10 birds on a tree, you hit one, how many are left? It got me thinking. And so I grew up with that aspect of, hey, this man is clever, this man is wise. And now that is our role right there, to shape and impact a child's way of thinking, to shape how they pronounce, the way we say our words, the way we like to use our expressions, when I'm angry, when I'm mad, when I'm happy, what I say, the things I say, how I say them, and the timing of when I say something. I can't just be a father in the house and I'm always kissing whenever I have a problem. I'm already impacting a negative energy towards that child line of literacy. And so it becomes very significant as a man to know that and acknowledge our role, that we are there to impact. we are using this skill called power that is naturally given by God and by nature, and that power influences a young mind. Children are very good sponges. They learn from seeing and hearing more than what you teach them. In actual fact, they just read the room and they learn from those things. And so the way in which we conduct ourselves becomes critical. The manner in which we position ourselves within the household becomes critical. The manner in which we value education or things that have literacy in it, reading of newspapers, reading magazines, doing crossword puzzles, those things indirectly stick to a child. And so that is just a bit of my opinion on the role of a father on children.
100%. And I think just from what I'm drawing from you, because is that it does not only, depend on the child's schooling system and what happens to them within the school, but it starts from the home, right? Our behaviors, our engagements with the children, and how we are modeling that, and the importance of, influence that we drive as parents, and specifically for male caregivers within the households. Thank you so much. And now into our conversation, I'd like to bring our third panelist in. Please, but Madoda, apologies for our delay in getting you onto the platform. Our technical glitches have just been so much of a barrier today. But you know what they say, we keep it going. And yeah, the show must go on. And so I'd like to please give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us what you do, right? And tell us about the work that you do. And then also to just bring your voice into the conversation. If you can share with us from your perspective how men can become positive role models, even if they are not biological fathers, because I think some households have got older brothers, right? We've got uncles that have the role of a caregiver in the household. And so from your perspective, what can and how can men who are not biological fathers play a positive role in the lives of children? How can they become or be positive role models, even in the space that they find themselves in? And welcome again to this conversation.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Let me start with the latter question, and then come up to introduce myself later, because I believe that when I introduce myself, I would say that I'm a tabula rasa. I take the shape of anything that comes up. I'm a blank slate. But safe to say that when I start with the latter question, would say, how can we as men influence, children who are not our children, who are not ours, and influence children of our sisters, brothers, and in generally in the society? I believe in the fact that as men, we've got the responsibility to ensure that we inspire every people who come in our space. For instance, in families, we believe that I understand very well that there are children of our sisters who, by virtue of they being from our families, they are our children. And that is very important, that now when we rear them up, we ensure that now they get the best we can, because the foundations of culture, they lie in language. And that is very important, therefore, that when we groom them up, we ensure that we give them the foundation, the axioms and the foundations of culture of our communities. It takes every gentleman, it takes every uncle to ensure that now the nephews and the nieces, they get inspired by the uncles. So I move from the premise of that. Secondly, it's safe to say that now, if throughout my life, most of the I was a teacher. I've been a teacher. I taught for about 17 years. After which I went in the museum to work in the museum. Now I'm doing another thing for Department of Arts and Culture. I'm heading up the name change committee of the province, wherein all the names that you see of towns and cities, I'm assisting as the head of secretariat for the province in standardizing all those names. Don't change names, but standardize them. That's what I do. So I believe that in all instances, that as men, we've got a responsibility to ensure that now the foundations of our culture lie with us. We need to kind of the preservers of our culture through the language, because the language is the first entry of of children to the community, first entry of children to our communities. That's it.
Thank you so much, with my daughter. And I think I'd like to stay with you just for another second, just basing off, the next question from your experience within schools, and what you've done, within the space of educating. And so I think when we think about society, a lot of us think that literacy should only happen within the school, right? And when children are in the classroom. However, we play a very important role as caregivers, and for male caregivers specifically because of their leadership role, and just overall, the influence that they have on children, especially the boy child within the community. And so, from your perspective and just your own experience, what role do you think male caregivers can play in developing the children's literacy at home, so that we are moving it from the classroom into the home in this instance?
I believe that from home and family, the essence of oh, I believe that as males in families, we've got a responsibility to ensure that kids understand the axiom, the foundations of our families. There are values and norms and standards in families. And as such, the responsibility of the male folks in the families to ensure that kids understand the important things, because language is the element of control. Language is the element of power. So if you want kids to have power and kids to understand the values of culture, they should study the language and understand basic elements and very important elements of culture. That is the main focus, because we have to inspire them in a plethora of ways. I believe that men have got a responsibility to ensure that children, especially those who don't have, parents, or who are our sisters, they get to be inspired by males. That's what I believe in.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I think I'll just bring you back into this conversation, with Akona. If you can, from your perspective and from your work within literacy, especially having been at the forefront, as a facilitator, what is one misconception about milk caregiving that you would like to challenge?
Sorry, Prudence, I didn't hear the question. Can you come again? We're not audible
Oh,
enough.
yes. Oh, am I audible now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. So the question I'm asking is, what is one
you can ask the question.
misconception? Okay, perfect. What is one misconception about fatherhood or male caregiving that you would like to challenge?
I think, I'd love to challenge this whole misconception that, as if fathers, cannot be involved into literacy, or they can, they're illiterate, or it's just only the mothers, that can be involved, and I believe there are fathers out there, who have the capabilities and the ability to take part, and being present for the literacy of their children. So for me personally, that's the misconception I'd love to challenge. Also, I think furthermore to that, there's this misconception of saying that is within our communities, where we feel like Uguti, the issue of literacy belongs to just certain people. Some other people, they just don't really feel like, okay, it's almost like it's belonging to educators, or it's belonging to the teachers. And I think that's where I'd love to challenge to say, Uguti, our literacy should be starting at home, because if we're having the habit of studying that literacy in our home ground, then it means that we're able to produce children that can, be good in literacy, and that can articulate, and also that they can be good readers, through the habits that we could be doing in our homes, and also in our respective communities. So we need to walk away from this misconception to say that says that it's only the educators and the teachers and in the academia space that are responsible of teaching children and also being involved in their academic life. So parents, specifically men, they need to engage in the education of their children.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Butakona. And I think I'd like to pose the same question to Budnokosi around, those misconceptions that you would like to challenge, especially around males' engagement within their children's literacy.
So I found that very interesting, and also my colleagues have articulated well. So, as men, there's a stereotype, a stereotypical type of attitude that we face, which speaks to the fact that, look, literacy is it's a soft sort of career, it's a soft field, you see. And men traditionally, they go out there, they do hunting, they go to mines, they work physical, strong jobs where there's, production. Now, traditionally, things of schooling and academic, yeah, it happens, but it has always been viewed as a soft line of work. I mean, when I studied information and library science, my father, my grandfather, all they used to ask was, like, hey, how is this thing going to feed you? Now, what I'm bringing to the table is that stereotype makes it difficult for many fathers and men to be involved in their child's basic home activities. When a man comes home, he's tired from work, he's been mining. I mean, the last thing he wants to do is to be reading Jimmy jumped the rock and what. That's the last thing that he's thinking. But now that's exactly where we want him to be. That is exactly what we want the father to be doing, that even after a long day's work, that 10 minutes with your child is also critical. And so we need to move away from that over masculinity, over muscular sometimes, unnecessary so. And so it challenges that narrative of we need to sort of shift our whole mindset from that into the new era. Our children need us. We've seen scientifically that absence results in a lot of negative things, poor character development, poor moral sort of modeling of our children, because they are not adequately informed, not only through what they are taught, but also through what they perceive and what they see. Another point also is language preservation is very critical. We lose the trajectory of the language and its history as technology and modernization comes into the picture. Now, it is generally that role of man that is expected to carry through some of those things that we learn from the past, that we learn from different areas, things we learn from the bush, for instance. They are brought home by the fathers, and they need to teach those things to their children so that we can have preservation not only of culture but also of language and also the values to that language. Now, which now speaks to the confidence of a young child or a young man, a young girl growing up. Social identity is critical in anyone's growth pattern. And so being present as a father reaffirms a child's confidence and positioning in life. So they grow up confident of who they are, knowing who they are, where they come from. And this is going to provide a buffer when they start interacting with senior types of learning or academia. When they get to university, you get there knowing who you are, where you come from, the values. Those are the things that carry you through. And so it becomes critical that we become that pillar within the household. Because obviously in class, you're not going to be taught public speaking in class. Your teacher will teach you how to solve for X and Y, Z. They'll be teaching you, how to do this and that. But comprehension is a skill you learn from home. It's something that we need to take upon to teach to learn that art of putting things together. They call it cognitive learning. You learn by putting things together. Without it, Without that skill, which they learn, it is not taught academically. It's something you learn within the household. So we need to be active in getting our children to perform tasks. There are things that they call it oratory skills. Like I used to get very much annoyed when my daughter used to come home with coloring tasks, like you're coloring in an elephant, tomorrow they color in this. Hey man, I'm thinking it's a lot of coloring. Where is this going to? But then I learned that they master the art of coloring within that shape. Now that is a skill that it teaches them to stay within context. That is a skill which shapes their ability to learn and master and learn new things and be controlled. Discipline is mastered through those things. And so as men, we need to play very active roles, not only um, in just teaching our children or supporting academia, but in also taking a leading role in introducing themes and introducing our children. We need to be very creative into how we shape our children's world. We shouldn't shy away from storytelling. We mustn't shy away from boosting their confidence. I mean, we need to support whatever challenges they're having at school. We need to identify those at home. A child cannot perform at school when you can see that your child is struggling at home to take instructions. You're expecting that child to bring a distinction. How is that possible? You see, so it's those type of things. You see, like my son is not gifted with skills, or my daughter likes singing, or she likes that, she likes this, and then you start investing in those things. Okay, fine, I see you are into mechanics. And then you start exposing your child literally through a world of literacy into those type of things, and then it transcends through the academia and going forward into life.
Thank you so much. I think, Bitunkosi, as you were speaking, it just again, reiterates the importance of the male voice within the community, within the life of the child that grows up with you, and that the learnings, the teachings, the influence builds character for them. It builds their confidence, and it also supports their growth and interaction beyond school. So it goes into their varsity life when they enter into higher education, and then further beyond, and even their behaviors when they are adults and have families of their own. It influences, how they model this behavior towards their children. And I think just another learning as you were talking is that understanding what the child brings home, because you were mentioning when your child came home with the picture of the elephant that they needed to color in, and you getting frustrated, but the moment you learned and understood what it teaches them and what it enables them to learn as a skill, it then becomes easier for you to support that growth and development. So I think a lot of wisdom nuggets to kind of draw from there. So thank you so much. I think I'm going to open up the floor to any questions from those that have joined us. And whilst we are posing those questions, I'm going to also just pose a question to the audience as well. So if you look at your life, and your surroundings within the spaces that you work in, if every child in South Africa had one man in their life who regularly read stories or told stories and listened and encouraged them, what difference do you believe that would make to our children's future? And I'd like to also just, whilst we're waiting for our audience questions to come in and our audience responses to come in, to pose this question to our panel as well. And I'll bring Oput Madota back into this onto the platform to maybe from your perspective, sir, if every child in South Africa had one man in their life who regularly read, told stories, listened and encouraged them, what difference do you believe that would make to the future of our children?
No, thanks for that. And I believe that myself, for instance, if I take an example, I was inspired by my teacher when I was young. He was a learner, was a student at university, and in his time he was studying about Oedipus complex, Oedipus rex, and the book Animal Farm. And he would study at university and come, and we used to say that it's coughing, and tell us what is this all about. And from those experiences, I began to appreciate and understand the aesthetics of appreciating literature. So from one gentleman who was a teacher, who used to come and cough for us, it inspired me to be a student of literature. Consequent to that, I began to appreciate the literature. The second point that I want to raise is that when I was growing up, we used to have bedtime stories, the fables, and of the epochs and warriors. Those stories have shaped me to understand and appreciate literature and history, and understand the historiography of the country, understand the flora and the fauna through the small stories. So I believe that if one can have an uncle and a male figure would have him as a role model, inspire him, that child will understand the power of comprehension, because through understanding literature, you begin to understand the rhyme and the rhythm, understand all the other elements of literature, understand all the elements of reading. And when you do that, one becomes somebody who understands the power of understanding language, the power of understanding the dynamics of language. And in future, one become a linguist. There are very prominent people who are no more now, and there is a gap between them. Legendary writers and authors, S.K. Mkai, A.C. Jordan, Dr. W.P. Khubusana, and Diosoga, John Knox Bokwe. And if you can read their books, you'll find that you will learn a lot. And you will not understand those books until somebody speaks to them about to you. It's either a teacher, or if it's not a teacher, someone from home. And if maybe at home, there's an edge that goes this. If one wants to hide treasure to any child or to any society, he can hide that through keeping it in a book. But if the ample of books at home, and one person inspires others to read, a young person inspires young person to read, that young person has got a propensity of beginning to become a genius in language, who will in later understand other elements, because other disciplines come from language, come from literature, come from understanding the power of reading and more reading. One cannot become an academic without having to read, and reading starting from understanding little things that you hear from. And from there, you are inspired to go and read yourself. Seeing is believing, and reading yourself. Once you read from yourself and understand better, therefore you can go to other disciplines of life. You can go to accounting through reading. You can go to jurisprudence through reading. You can go to other elements. You can go to become a politician through reading, because good politicians who've got oratory are those who started by reading and more reading. And the essence and the rules of grammar and the rules of literature, if one reads more, that person can rule his space. And teachers have got a collective responsibility to do that. And male folks in families, elders in families, have got a role to ensure that now they inspire the young. At least pick a book, have a small library at home, read to them. If those are young, inspire them by kind of giving tales. There's an element that says even Nelson Mandela, in order for him to understand things, he used to listen to people, the elders, who were gathering in a secular way, in a traditional leadership format. We can take that now as part of literature, because in his book that he wrote later, he said that he was inspired into leadership and politics by those people who were talking among themselves about a plethora of items in the traditional leadership circles. So I move that people consider that the male folks have got the responsibility to inspire the young in matters of literature, in matters of reading, and in matters of understanding language. And that is, if people have got that, young people have got that, we've got a sure that now they'll become inspirational, people who are inspired, and people who are good orators. Because orators, you cannot become an orator if you have never read. And you cannot be able to understand the timelines if you have not read. People who read, young people who read, young people who are inspired through books, naturally become some people who become, prominent in their own right in any career they choose, because every vehicle of literature, every vehicle of career goes through language, understanding the comprehension, and all those elements take place through the format of reading and literature and language.
Oh, thank you so, so much, but my daughter. And I'm just, just eating out of the palm of your hand as you share this knowledge, because I believe that each one of us have been inspired by another person, that influenced our exposure, that influenced the career opportunities that we knew of, that we knew existed. And we also saw ourselves as being able to tap into those. So this is really great. And I think just from your story, your comment on storytelling and how much that also influences the thinking and the exposure for children. Books really create a window into an unknown world where your imagination is able to stretch. And this is really, really, truly exciting. Thank you so much, sir. I think we have a question, and I'd like again for Butunkosi to come in here just to speak to from your experience, because I know you've got quite a lot of background and experience and exposure within your current line of work and in the past, what you've also done. And Ubawalo Makoni is asking, she's saying, one, great conversation. So thank you so much for that. And Ubawalo wants to know, how is this, the work in literacy, the space that we are finding ourselves in, how is this work taken to grassroots level? How does this work influence those on ground level?
Yes, that is a critical question there that she's asking. Uh, you see, where I am, we are in a space where we are trying to to repackage literacy. You see, I think 2 years back, a study came out stating that about, I think it's almost 84, 85% of grade 3 learners are reading without comprehension as they journey further into primary school. And so it got us thinking that perhaps our strategy of reaching our target audience is not doing what it needs to do. And so strategy one, we decided, you know what, we're going to become foot soldiers. Let us not preach literacy from our offices. We need to go to our communities and start being hands on. And so we've started a series of, in partnership with Nalibali, we've introduced like storytelling sessions in schools. So we've got like a team of librarians who are trained in within the children's section to go to schools. They are going in and out of schools, and we are also supporting other initiatives. As we know, like there's a lot of poetry that is, Eastern Cape is rich in poetry, and it's one of our bright areas. So we are riding that wave in where I am, to try and introduce it to lower levels also at primary school, because people learn to be confident speakers, they learn to express, and then they find their voice, and then ultimately it sort of translate into the academic and overall literature well-being. We've also decided to partner with other institutions that have already made inroads into schools. Can give an example of Uvundu Poetry Club, run by a fellow colleague Sakum. He's running poetry competitions, but his main issue is not the competition side of it, but it's to get children as early as they can to start writing whatever experiences, because what you write, it sort of becomes an expression, an ability to express translate into your ability to communicate. Ability to communicate means that you are able to digest instruction and also give out instruction. And so that is where the trick is. Now it's almost like we're tricking the child, we're tricking the mind into development before the mind knows that it's being developed, you see. And then we've also introduced, still within the schooling area, we call it, it's book discussions zoom into especially work that has been written in the Eastern Cape by our local authors, our local people that are from here, or Ramzi, or Mr. Mahala. They've written a lot of influential books. And so we're trying to tap into these books that have been written by South Africans, locals, and the themes that are being communicated in there. And then we do now what we do, the book discussions. These are mostly aimed at our your clever children. This is now your youth. They're getting clever, you see, at youth stage. Now we know that they are being taught comprehension in school, but what we are wanting them to do, much as it's not the same as what we're doing, we want them to read and
Mm.
debate and discuss the book. So again, it's another strategy of not only tricking the mind, but we are manipulating their skills indirectly, because when they find the things you need to justify, find arguments using text from within the book, and then you can then engage with other schools, you discuss, you debate, and do all of those things. And ultimately, without them knowing, they would have not only learnt the book, they have not only learnt the themes in the book, but they've also learned to engage with others, they've learned to debate, they've learned to discuss. Public speaking skills have been imparted indirectly. And finally, one of the strategies we're now using recently, we are trying to make use of our ebooks and audiobooks. It's not an easy terrain because most of our communities in the townships do not have access to Wi-Fi's and those type of technologies. But at least in some of our libraries, there is free access to Wi-Fi. So we know that they're on TikTok, they are on WhatsApp, they are on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on X. So we're trying to sort of infiltrate that sphere.
Mm.
Um, they are spending a lot of time on social media, and so now with the
Mm.
audio and ebooks, we are sort of, although we are behind, I must confess, we are a bit behind, but we are trying to catch up into that space. And there's a team of young NMU students that are currently experimenting with library TikTok matters. That's the title, library TikTok matters. And so they are trying to work around the strategy of putting content on TikTok to do with libraries and storytelling, just to give another narrative of what we are seeing, from the American, because they put all American things there on TikTok. If you follow, a lot of the things are not, there's very little to do with South Africa, to do with what we're doing here for our children, or that is literacy oriented. Even our schooling material, I see that on YouTube, if you search for how to teach a child to read, you will find things from East Africa, or you find things from West Africa, or you
Mm.
find things from South America. And now the accents they're using, it's difficult
Mm.
for our children locally to sort of connect with those things. And so they are not learning much from this, so it becomes a waste. And now that is our opportunity to now move into that field and sort of start uh, pumping content out there on social media that they can understand. And so I think on a grassroots level, that is what we need to do.
Thank you so much, Putunkosi. So it's about creating opportunities, creating platforms, and then creating space for those young people, for the children on the ground, to get involved. And that way we have the opportunity to influence their thinking, influence their mind, and create that mind shift that's needed. Thank you so much for that. And then I'd like to just post the final question, and I'd like to bring Uputakona into this final question from our side. And the question is as follows: what would you advise fathers, grandfathers, uncles, or male caregivers to start doing from this week already in supporting their child's learning and development? So what's that one literacy habit that they can start doing to, again, support their children's learning and development?
Much prudence. More than anything, I think it's very important to say that Uguti, they need to be more involved into the children's lives. Spend time with the children. It can be practically 15 to 20 minutes reading with a child every day. Tell family stories. Visit the local libraries. With your child. I mean, more than anything, turn off the television for the reading time, and let children see you reading, because like we keep saying, the children will always mimic what they see from their parents. So it is very important that more than anything, let's bring a certain culture. Let's bring a culture that will ignite positive change and positive transformation into our households, then it means that you could switch off that TV, read that book, let's tell family stories, challenge these children to write about their families, write about their day, to imagine the world, challenge, I have open-ended questions to try and ask them, what do they think, how do they feel, what do they, how they can change the world, because I think we need to change this narrative, also in our parenting, to allow children to be themselves and allow children to actually lead us, not necessarily saying that we should now let or loosen up the morality of parenting, but this also brings the ability for children to feel free, and for children to be in a conducive environment. Because once they become in a conducive environment and in a free environment, they're able to express themselves. So these are just practical stuff. I could say, Uguti, can men take them, read that book, spend time with the children, switch off that TV, because these TVs and these apps, I think we were literacy activists at a time where technology has taken over, social media has taken over, to the extent that these children concentration span is very little, it's very small, to an extent that a child focuses just for a moment, and the next minute they need to watch that TV, they need to check that YouTube, they need to check that TikTok, so we need also to find a way to address these challenges by making by bringing a culture in our households of discipline, and bring a culture of reading, within our households. I want to believe that with the small daily habits, they can create lifelong readers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Budakona, and I am 100% in agreement with you. So, if we are deliberate in our decisions to read, and if we're deliberate in making sure that we're creating the space in the home for us to be able to engage in literacy, switching off the TV, putting phones down, finding that story to tell together with your children, those small habits will start building towards bigger ones. Thank you so much for that input there. And then my final question to you, Butpadota, from our conversation today, what message would you like every father and male caregiver to remember after today's webinar? Oh, apologies, but my daughter, we aren't able to hear you. Please unmute your mic.
I believe the moral of the lesson for today is that parents are the custodians of the success of communities. Parents are custodians of the success of their families. Parents, especially fathers, are the custodians of the success of the communities where they live. They have got a collective responsibility as such to ensure that they develop a culture of reading. They develop a culture of learning. They develop a culture of literature. And by doing that, my colleague has just indicated that now, seeing is believing, and they have to be inspiring by having a small pocket libraries in their homestead. Every family, if you go to any family, there should be at least books that when when a gentleman is going to be speaking somewhere, whatever it's going to be speaking, you've got to ensure that now there is a book that he can read from and be able to inspire where he's going to be speaking to. And at home, there is a book that children can with ease take from his library and read. So I believe that parents or menfolk have got at least to ensure that now they go and buy books, they collect books and have their own collections, where they inspire, even by their talks, wherever they go, they inspire through the orality that they become, they inspire through little conservation they do, they inspire through small things that they do in the communities. So it transpires to me from the discussions today that uh, we've got to be inspirational in many ways than one. And in our communities, in schools, and wherever we live. And I think my colleagues are putting it nicely when they say that we don't have to kind of now having romantic discussions about this matter, but it has to be a practical matter. We've got to be pragmatic in ensuring that now the discussion that we do are transferred to be action that takes place regularly. It starts with us, and we can inspire our contemporaries, and it permeate its energy towards a bigger society.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Putma Doctor. So it starts with those small steps in being inspirational, and going to get that book so that you have the resource to engage with your children's literacy. With that said, I'd like to close our conversation right there. And thank you so, so much, our panel, for your insights, for your wisdom, and for the guidance that you've shared today with those that have joined. I must say we've got quite a number of reactions, hearts and likes that have come through as you shared your knowledge with us. And so we're really grateful for that. We look forward to continuous engagement beyond this platform with you. And I kindly encourage you to please share your LinkedIn links with us, to your LinkedIn pages and your Facebook pages, so that we're able to share it with our audience and they can follow you and see the amazing work that you are doing within your respective communities. We've got a comment from Obabalo again that says, books are expensive in South Africa. And I think just from the knowledge that we've been able to get, and also just the guidance on how to access these resources, we are better equipped, as a society to access resources. And just lastly, from Aniki Ramatlape there that says to us that I come from a family of readers. My younger brother is actively involved in reading for his kids. My son also reads for his son. I see the difference in their kids when I compare them to the kids I have in the book club. I so wish more males could be in this webinar so they can hear the important role they play when they are involved in their children's life through reading and helping with their schoolwork. Thank you for the wisdom shared. And that's directed to you, our panelists, thanking you for your wisdom that you've shared with us today. It has touched those that are on this platform, and I believe that it will continuously encourage those as they engage within their children's literacy beyond the classroom and into their homes as well. And so to you, our audience, and those that are live on our social media pages, you are able to get involved with Nali Bali through different means, especially within the work that we do through our Men's in Bizo program. You are able to start a men's literacy club in your area, and to do that, you are able to go through our Men's Literacy in Bizo training program, attending our webinars, accessing information on our websites to be able to access the free reading sources and support that we have. And so we encourage you to please get involved with us, start that literacy club so that we're able to support you, not just with capacitating you, but also with our resources. And you can also get in touch with our stories or get access to our stories in all SA languages, which are available on the different digital platforms. WhatsApp, you can WhatsApp stories to 0600 442254 and be able to access our digital stories from there. Our audio stories are also available on the same WhatsApp platform as well as on our website, again in all of our South African languages. You also have access to our reading and storytelling tips, our reading club and literacy tips, as well as how to access reading material by age, theme, and language. And you're also welcome to do some of our training via our website and WhatsApp number as well to become a Funda leader and be part of the Nali Bali network. Please also follow us on our different social media pages in order to be keep abreast with everything that we're doing as an organization, and for you to participate from that perspective. Thank you so, so much. And I think just to our panel, if you can, just also say a goodbye to those that have joined us today.
Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening to us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it highly.
Thank you, Putman Dr. Putunkosi.
It's been a real pleasure, and on any day I would wake up and fight for literacy as a man, and so I just want to urge everyone out there to get up and go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our audience.
Thank you so much. But Akona.
Okay, thank you very much, Ndiabulela Kakulu. This was a great opportunity. I think my last one to the fathers out there is just letting them know that literacy is not only about books; it's about relationships. Every father, grandfather, uncle, brother, coach, teacher, and community leader, they have the power, to shape a child's future through words, stories, encouragement, and their time. So may the heroes of our time and the fathers of our time continue to do the great work in changing the societies. Thank you very much to everyone who listened to us.
Thank you so much, and a very good night to all of our audiences that have joined us on the different social platforms. We will keep in touch on the socials and see you in the next webinar. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you and good night. Bye-bye.